The headache arrives at 6 in the morning before the alarm. Not sharp, not pounding. A dull pressure behind the forehead that was absent when you fell asleep and present when you woke. The restlessness at 3 that pulled you out of sleep without reason. No noise, no pain, no dream you can recall. Just suddenly awake in a dark room with no explanation. The fog at breakfast that takes an hour and 2 coffees to clear. The sense that the brain is running at 60% while the body has been vertical for 45 minutes. The sleep was long enough. The mattress was fine. The room was dark and quiet. The partner slept through. The 8 hours registered on the tracker. Every controllable variable was controlled. The symptom arrived anyway. The air was the variable nobody measured. 2 adults in a sealed bedroom exhale approximately 400 liters of carbon dioxide per hour. The room has a fixed volume. The carbon dioxide has nowhere to go. By midnight, the concentration has doubled from the outdoor baseline. By 3 in the morning, it has reached levels that industrial ventilation standards classify as unacceptable for occupied workspaces. You slept through an air quality threshold that an office building would be required to ventilate below. The headache, the restlessness, the fog. The sleep was long enough. The air quality deteriorated hour by hour while you were unconscious, and the sleep architecture sustained damage you never perceived. How fast does the concentration climb? Arithmetic is the physics. Outdoor ambient carbon dioxide concentration, approximately 420 parts per million. A sealed bedroom, 20 square meters with a 2.5 meter ceiling, 50 cubic meters of air. One adult at rest exhales approximately 200 liters of carbon dioxide per hour, calculated from 12 to 16 breaths per minute, 500 milliliters of tidal volume per breath, and 4% carbon dioxide in exhaled air. 16 breaths per minute times 60 minutes equals 960 breaths per hour. Each breath exhales 500 milliliters containing 4% carbon dioxide, approximately 20 milliliters of pure carbon dioxide per breath. 960 breaths times 20 milliliters equals roughly 200 liters per person per hour. 2 people, 400 liters. The arithmetic is specific enough to run in your head and verify with your own breathing rate. 2 adults, 400 liters per hour. Each breath adds carbon dioxide to a room losing none. The sealed bedroom is a closed system in the thermodynamic sense. Matter enters the lungs from the room air. The lungs extract oxygen and add carbon dioxide, and the modified air returns to the room. No air exits. No fresh air enters. The room is a container with 2 gas exchangers running continuously inside it. 50 cubic meters sounds spacious until you calculate the rate at which 2 sleeping humans modify it. 400 liters of carbon dioxide per hour entering 50,000 liters of room air means the carbon dioxide fraction increases by approximately 800 parts per million every hour. The rate is constant because the metabolic demand of sleeping bodies is constant. The accumulation is relentless because the room has no sink, no mechanism for removing the carbon dioxide the lungs add. The only variable is the starting concentration and the volume it distributes into. Both are fixed once the door closes and the lights go out, each one converting oxygen to carbon dioxide at a rate determined by the metabolic demand of a sleeping body. The rate varies slightly across sleep stages. Rapid eye movement sleep produces approximately 10 to 15% more carbon dioxide than stage 2 because the brain metabolic rate increases during dreaming. The variation is modest, but compounds the timing problem. The second half of the night, when rapid eye movement proportion is highest, is also the half when the accumulated concentration is already elevated, adding slightly more carbon dioxide per hour to an already high baseline. The metabolic rate during sleep is approximately 80 to 90% of the resting rate, lower than waking but far from zero. The brain alone, at approximately 20% of total metabolic output, continues consuming oxygen and producing carbon dioxide at near waking rates because the brain does not rest during sleep. It reorganizes, consolidates, and repairs, processes that demand substantial energy and produce substantial carbon dioxide as a metabolic byproduct. Accumulation is linear without ventilation. Hour 1, midnight, approximately 800 to 1,000 parts per million. Hour 2, 1 in the morning, 1,200 to 1,500. Hour 4, 3 in the morning, 2,000 to 2,500. Hour 6, 5 in the morning, 2,500 to 3,500. By morning, 3,000 to 4,000 parts per million, 8 to 10 times the outdoor concentration. You fell asleep in air that was outdoor quality. You woke in air that no workplace ventilation system would permit an employee to breathe for a full shift. The transformation happened while you were unconscious. No alarm sounded. No indicator changed color. No smell alerted you because carbon dioxide is odorless at every concentration the bedroom reaches. The concentration climbs silently, produced by nothing more than two people breathing in a room with the windows closed and the door shut. The arithmetic is identical, arithmetic to what governs carbon dioxide accumulation in submarines, spacecraft, and mines, scaled down to a domestic bedroom. The engineering solutions in those environments, active ventilation, carbon dioxide scrubbers, monitor-driven air exchange, exist because the accumulation physics is identical at every scale. Your bedroom runs identical gas physics as a submarine. The submarine has an engineering solution. The bedroom has a window. The 5 centimeter gap that halves the concentration through passive convection is the engineering solution the submarine cannot use, and the bedroom can. A consumer carbon dioxide monitor placed on the nightstand displays the concentration in real time. The number at lights out, the number at 3 in the morning if you wake, and the number at the alarm tells you exactly where your bedroom sits on the accumulation curve and whether the window gap is sufficient to keep the concentration below the threshold the brainstem detects. Bedroom carbon dioxide concentrations in sealed two-occupant bedrooms follow this accumulation curve through measurable data. Strume-Tayson and colleagues measured these concentrations in indoor air, confirming levels of 2,500 to 3,000 parts per million in sealed bedrooms by morning. Concentration climbed every hour you slept. The question is whether these numbers matter, whether carbon dioxide at these levels does anything measurable to the brain sleeping inside the room. What do these concentrations do to cognitive function, thresholds? Below 600 parts per million, outdoor equivalent, unimpaired. Above 1,000, the upper boundary the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers sets for acceptable indoor air quality. Above 2,000, headaches, increased respiratory rate, and restlessness documented in indoor air quality studies. The headache mechanism is specific. Carbon dioxide is a potent cerebral vasodilator. Elevated blood carbon dioxide causes the cerebral arteries to dilate, increasing blood flow to the brain and producing the pressure sensation the morning headache delivers. The dilation is the brainstem attempting to increase oxygen delivery in response to the elevated carbon dioxide, and the headache is the perceptual consequence of the increased intracranial blood volume the dilation produces. The carbon dioxide headache is distinct from a dehydration headache or a tension headache. It arrives upon waking before any physical activity and resolves within 30 to 60 minutes of breathing ambient air as the blood carbon dioxide normalizes and the cerebral vasodilation reverses. If your morning headache resolves specifically after moving to a well-ventilated room and does not return until the next morning, the timing pattern points to the overnight carbon dioxide exposure as the trigger. Above 2,500, measurable cognitive decline. Decision-making performance on the strategic management simulation declined 12 to 23% at 1,000 parts per million. At 2,500, declines reached 44 to 94% on specific decision subscales, with the largest effects on complex strategic initiative tasks and smaller effects on simpler task types. Sadish and colleagues documented these declines in environmental health perspectives. The range reflects variation across task types, and the measurements were made on awake subjects performing cognitive tasks in controlled environments. The largest declines appeared in the most complex decision-making tasks, the ones requiring integration of multiple variables and strategic planning. Simpler tasks showed smaller declines. The pattern suggests that carbon dioxide impairs the higher-order processing most, the executive functions the prefrontal cortex manages, the functions that produce the breakfast fog you experience as difficulty concentrating, planning the day, or making decisions clearly. Sealed bedroom crosses the 1,000 parts per million threshold within the first 90 minutes of sleep. By 3 in the morning, 2,000 to 2,500, the range producing the largest measured cognitive declines. By 5 in the morning, potentially above 3,000, the brain sleeping inside the room processed this air for hours. The Satish data was measured on awake subjects performing cognitive tasks in controlled environments. The sleeping brain was exposed to identical concentrations for longer durations without the ability to open a window, leave the room, or even perceive the degradation. The cognitive impairment measured in awake subjects at 2,500 parts per million was the impairment the sleeping brain absorbed continuously from 3 in the morning until the alarm. Concentration exceeds workplace thresholds. The cognitive effects are measured. The question is, how? What mechanism converts elevated room carbon dioxide into disrupted sleep in a brain that is unconscious throughout? What does rising carbon dioxide do to sleep architecture? Chemoreceptor-mediated microarousal. The central chemoreceptors in the brainstem, at the retrotrapezoid nucleus and the ventral medullary surface, detect carbon dioxide changes through pH. Carbon dioxide crosses the blood-brain barrier through passive diffusion and dissolves in the cerebrospinal fluid. In the fluid, carbon dioxide reacts with water to form carbonic acid, which dissociates into bicarbonate and hydrogen ions. The hydrogen ions lower the cerebrospinal fluid pH. The medullary chemoreceptors respond to a pH shift as small as 0.05 units, corresponding to a carbon dioxide increase of approximately 5 to 10 millimeters of mercury. The sensitivity is extreme because maintaining blood pH within the narrow range of 7.35 to 7.45 is the brainstem respiratory center primary function. A pH excursion below this range disrupts enzyme function throughout the body. The chemoreceptors guard the boundary with a response speed measured in seconds, producing ventilatory adjustments before the pH shift can affect systemic enzyme kinetics. In the sealed bedroom, the chemoreceptors are responding appropriately to a real pH signal from a real carbon dioxide elevation. The system is working correctly. The environment is the problem. The chemoreceptors detect the pH drop and increase respiratory drive automatically during sleep. Breathing rate and depth increase without any conscious awareness. The response is the brainstem doing its job, detecting a potentially dangerous gas concentration and attempting to blow off the excess carbon dioxide through faster, deeper breathing. The mechanism evolved to protect the organism from suffocation. In the sealed bedroom, the mechanism is responding to a concentration that is uncomfortable but not dangerous, producing ventilatory responses that are sufficient to prevent harm but insufficient to reduce the room concentration because the room is still sealed and the source, 2 sleeping humans, continues producing carbon dioxide at a constant rate. Increased respiratory drive produces microarousals, brief shifts from stage 3, slow-wave sleep, the deepest repair phase, toward stage 2 or stage 1, lasting seconds to minutes, then returning to deeper sleep. You have no memory of these arousals. A polysomnography study would show the arousals as brief brainwave frequency shifts from the delta waves of stage 3 to the theta or alpha waves of lighter sleep. Each shift lasts seconds. Each shift resets the slow wave cycle, forcing the brain to begin the descent to stage 3 from scratch. The brain must redescend through the lighter stages to reach stage 3 again, and each redescent takes minutes. The net effect, total time in stage 3, is compressed by the cumulative interruptions, even though total sleep time appears normal. The sleep tracker shows 8 hours. The sleep duration appeared normal. The sleep architecture was fragmented, deep repair stages, compressed by the brainstem's ventilatory response to the rising carbon dioxide concentration. The microarousals may occur dozens of times per night once the concentration exceeds the chemoreceptor threshold, each one lasting 5 to 15 seconds, each one pulling the brain from stage 3 toward lighter sleep, each one invisible to the sleep tracker that registers total sleep time but cannot distinguish deep architecture from shallow architecture at the resolution the brain operates on. You slept for 8 hours. The architecture inside those 8 hours was fragmented by a gas concentration the brainstem detected, and you did not. Timing compounds the damage. Carbon dioxide peaks during the second half of the night, 4 to 6 hours of accumulation. The second half is when rapid eye movement proportion increases, the phase for emotional processing and the hippocampal to cortical memory transfer, the name's discussion as the consolidation window. The carbon dioxide peak coincides with a sleep phase most vulnerable to disruption. Slow-wave sleep, the consolidation phase, is the phase the chemoreceptors fragment most aggressively because the respiratory drive increase during deep sleep produces the largest architectural disruption. Carbon dioxide-mediated microarousals disrupting sleep architecture through chemoreceptor activation follow this mechanism. Mishra and colleagues confirmed this in Energy and Buildings, establishing that elevated bedroom carbon dioxide reduces slow-wave sleep proportion and increases the number of nocturnal arousals. Well, the chemoreceptor mechanism reframed the mornings I had been attributing to poor sleep quality despite adequate duration. 8 hours on the tracker. The room sealed. The concentration climbing every hour while the brainstem detected the pH shift and fragmented the deep sleep the repair window needed. The headache at 6 was the carbon dioxide the blood carried from hours of elevated room concentration. The fog was the architectural damage from microarousals I never perceived. The sleep was long enough. The air quality deteriorated while I was unconscious. Air quality crossed every threshold while you slept. The chemoreceptors fragmented the deep sleep the repair window depends on. But there is a connection you have already encountered. 3 contributors to the middle of the night awakening have already been identified. The carbon dioxide curve reaches its steepest rise at 1 hour. What is the 3 a.m. connection? 4 systems converging at 1 hour. The 3 a.m. waking discussion described cortisol at its circadian trough, the lowest output of the hypothalamic pituitary-adrenal axis. Blood sugar at overnight nadir, gluconeogenesis lagging behind the glucose the sleeping brain consumed. Bladder at stretch threshold, reduced bladder compliance producing urgency at lower volumes. Now a 4th contributor, carbon dioxide crossing the chemoreceptor's arousal threshold at 3 to 4 in the morning after 4 hours of linear accumulation in the sealed room. 4 systems, 1 hour. The convergence at 3 in the morning is 4 independent mechanisms each crossing their own threshold within one 60-minute window, each contributing its own microarousal or full arousal. The combined probability of waking exceeding the threshold any single system would have crossed alone. Each system contributes its own arousal probability, cortisol trough at perhaps 10%, glucose nadir at perhaps 15%, bladder threshold at perhaps 20%, carbon dioxide chemoreceptor at perhaps 25%. None is individually certain to wake you. All 4 operating simultaneously produce a combined probability that makes the 3 a.m. awakening nearly inevitable on the nights all 4 conditions are met. The convergence explains why 3 a.m. is so consistent. It is the hour when the most independent arousal systems reach their individual thresholds simultaneously. Carbon dioxide contribution is the only one eliminable tonight by opening a window. The cortisol trough is circadian. The glucose nadir is metabolic. The bladder threshold is anatomical. The carbon dioxide concentration is architectural, determined by a room variable you can change before you fall asleep. Open the window. The concentration halves. The chemoreceptor threshold is no longer crossed at 3 in the morning. One of the 4 systems drops out of the convergence entirely. The remaining 3 systems still converge at 3 in the morning, but the combined arousal probability decreases by the fraction the carbon dioxide contribution was adding. The cortisol, glucose, and bladder contributions remain, but the combined probability decreases measurably when the 4th contributor is eliminated. Can you fix it tonight? 5 centimeters of open window. Strom-Tazen's study measured the effect. Opening a window reduced peak carbon dioxide from approximately 2,500 parts per million to approximately 1,200, a 50% reduction from a 5-centimeter gap. Stack effect. Warm indoor air, heated by body heat and room temperature, is less dense than cool outdoor air. The warm air rises and exits through the top of the window gap. Cool, denser outdoor air enters through the bottom. The temperature differential drives a continuous convective loop throughout the night, no fan required, no mechanical ventilation, just the buoyancy difference between warm and cool air masses exchanging continuously through the opening. The driving force is specific. The density difference between warm indoor air at approximately 22 degrees and cool outdoor air at approximately 10 to 15 degrees produces a pressure differential across the window opening that drives airflow at rates proportional to the temperature gap. A larger temperature difference drives faster exchange. The driving force is calculable. The buoyancy force is proportional to the temperature difference divided by the absolute temperature, multiplied by gravitational acceleration and the height of the air column. In practical terms, a 10-degree difference between indoor and outdoor temperature through a 1-meter-tall window gap produces approximately 15 to 20 air changes per hour in the gap volume, sufficient to maintain the bedroom below 1,000 parts per million through the night. A summer night with minimal temperature difference produces less convective flow, which is why summer nights in sealed bedrooms can produce higher peak concentrations than winter nights with the same window opening. Now, airflow rate is proportional to the temperature differential and the height of the opening. A taller window gap produces more flow than a wider gap of identical area because the vertical distance between the warm air exit at the top and the cool air entry at the bottom increases the buoyancy driving force. Even a 5 centimeter gap on a bedroom window with a 1 meter height provides measurable air exchange throughout the night. You can verify the exchange is occurring. Hold a tissue at the bottom edge of the gap and observe the inward deflection from the cool air entering. Hold it at the top edge and observe the outward deflection from the warm air exiting. The convective loop is visible through the tissue movement. Trade-offs are real: noise in urban environments, temperature loss in winter, security on ground floors. The physics is simple. The implementation involves competing variables that your specific situation determines. Whether your sleep quality issues relate to bedroom air quality, sleep architecture, medical conditions, or other factors is a determination your physician makes through clinical evaluation. The physics teaches what sealed room carbon dioxide does to sleep architecture through the chemoreceptor mechanism. The 5 centimeter window test is available tonight. Open the window, sleep as usual, and compare the morning. If the headache and fog improve, the air quality was contributing. If they persist unchanged, another variable is primary and the clinical evaluation continues. The test costs nothing, requires no equipment, and produces results within a single night. If they persist unchanged, another variable is primary. A partially open interior door connecting to a room with a cracked window provides an alternative convective path when the bedroom window cannot open. The room size and occupant count scale: the arithmetic: 1 occupant in a 20 square meter room, half the carbon dioxide, same volume. Peak approximately 1200 to 1500 parts per million by morning, above the ventilation threshold but below most sleep disruption thresholds. 2 occupants in a 12 square meter room, 30 cubic meters, same production, 40% less volume. The 2500 threshold arrives in 2 to 3 hours instead of 4. A small sealed bedroom with 2 people produces the worst air quality. 2 occupants in a 30 square meter room, same production, 50% more volume, potentially staying below 2000 all night. Room size is a ventilation variable. The bedroom door is often overlooked. A closed door seals the room. An open door connects the bedroom to the hallway, dramatically increasing the effective volume the carbon dioxide distributes into. 2 occupants in a 12 square meter bedroom with the door closed, 30 cubic meters. Same bedroom with the door open, effectively 200 or more cubic meters of connected living space. The concentration peak drops proportionally to the volume increase. An open bedroom door may reduce peak concentration by 60 to 80% without opening a window. The door is the simplest ventilation intervention in situations where the window cannot open: winter cold, urban noise, ground floor security. Leaving the bedroom door open 6 to 8 centimeters provides a gap for convective exchange with the larger air volume of the house while maintaining visual privacy and reducing light intrusion from hallway sources. The practical assessment: if you sleep alone in a room larger than 15 square meters, the concentration may stay below the disruption threshold even with the window closed, depending on how well the door seals against the hallway. If you sleep with a partner in a room smaller than 15 square meters, the arithmetic produces disruptive concentrations within 3 to 4 hours regardless of mattress quality, room temperature, or darkness. The 2-occupant small bedroom is the highest risk configuration. You can estimate your own exposure: room length times width times ceiling height equals volume in cubic meters. 2 occupants add 400 liters of carbon dioxide per hour. Ceiling height matters. A 2.2 meter ceiling reduces the volume by 12% compared to 2.5, accelerating the threshold crossing proportionally in older buildings with lower ceilings. My own bedroom arithmetic changed the window protocol the evening the numbers reached my specific room: 14 square meters, 2 occupants, 35 cubic meters. The 2500 threshold arrived in under 3 hours. The window opened that night and has not closed since. Arithmetic runs in your head for your own bedroom, and the number tells you how many hours of sealed sleep produce the concentration that crosses the brainstem's detection threshold. And then, the morning landed differently. The sequence you perform every morning: opening the curtains, walking to the kitchen, stepping outside, is the carbon dioxide washout. The transition from 2500 to 3000 parts per million in the sealed bedroom to 420 in ambient air. The 20 to 30 minutes of feeling that you are waking up is partly the blood carbon dioxide level normalizing. the chemoreceptors standing down, the respiratory drive settling, and the cerebral blood flow adjusting to the lower carbon dioxide environment. The 2 coffees you need before feeling sharp are partly compensating for the residual impairment the overnight exposure produced. The brain that processed 2,500 parts per million for 4 hours does not recover the moment you step into fresh air. Blood carbon dioxide clears rapidly with a half-time of approximately 3 to 5 minutes once you breathe ambient air. The 20 to 30 minute normalization period reflects the slower correction. Cerebrospinal fluid pH adjusts more gradually because the blood-brain barrier limits the rate at which bicarbonate buffers equilibrate across it. The normalization takes 20 to 30 minutes as the cerebrospinal fluid equilibrates, the cerebrospinal fluid pH corrects, and the chemoreceptors reduce the respiratory drive they had been maintaining for hours. Carbon dioxide generation rates per adult at rest follow established respiratory physiology. Pursley and de Jonge established these rates in indoor air, confirming approximately 200 liters per hour from standard respiratory parameters. You who open the bedroom window before sleep begin the night at ambient and stay near ambient. You who seal the room begin at ambient and end at industrial threshold. Same sleep duration, different air. The variable that changed was the one nobody measured. 2 lungs in a sealed box for 8 hours. 400 liters of carbon dioxide added every hour to a room losing none. The concentration climbed from 420 at lights out to 2,500 by 3 in the morning. The sleeping brain processed this air for hours while the chemoreceptors in the brainstem detected the rising acidity, increased the respiratory drive, and fragmented the deep sleep the overnight repair depended on. 5 centimeters of open window would have halved the concentration through convective exchange, driven by the temperature difference between the room and the night air. The fix was architectural. The problem was arithmetic. The concentration was calculable. The solution was a 5-centimeter gap, 2 lungs, 1 sealed room, 8 continuous hours. The math was running the entire night. The window is the answer the math provides. The number on the carbon dioxide monitor at 3 in the morning tells you whether the gap is wide enough. 5 centimeters. Tonight.